Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining us for this live stream today. My name is Isabel. I'm a community manager at ACCA, and I'm really happy today to be joined by one of our expert tutors, Trevor. And I'll be letting him steer the conversation because he is the expert. But we are basically here today to give you some last-minute tips for the week ahead. March exams are just around the corner, and it's going to be an understandably stressful week, I guess, but we're here to help you make the most of your time. So thank you so much, Trevor, for joining us. I've got a few questions that I'll put to you.
Okay.
Starting with, so there's 1 week to March exams. What should students be focusing on this week?
Okay. I think that's a very good question. It's a question that all the students are asking me. What should we do with 1 more week? I think before I even talk about anything, so we need to make sure that we have a plan. So everything that I'm going to advise you, you need to have it written down. You need to come up with a plan. And what I tell my students is, think of the next week. So if you're working and if you're a family, so how much time do you have to put for your studies? Then first carve out that time. So come up with a plan. How many hours do I have in a day, or how many minutes do I have in a day? On the weekend, we expect you to have more time. So I think once you have that structure, once you understand the time that you have, so now some of you might not be able to study an hour every day, but we want you to try your best, carve out that time. So if there are sacrifices that you have to make, then you have to make those sacrifices for the final week. So make that time available. And once we have that time, then I want us to focus on revising. So this should be revision week. So the assumption is we've all gone through our material. So I'm not expecting you to be reading a chapter from scratch. So we have to focus on our summaries. So I'm assuming you have been making summaries, you've been making your own notes. So let's use those notes, let's focus on those summaries, but I want us to be practicing questions. So let's go to the practice platform, identify a question. So if you have, say, 30 minutes today, later on in the evening, then just identify, say, section A question or section B question, depending on the level that you're studying. Then attempt a question. Make time to review that question. So instead of focusing the 30 minutes digging deep into content or going on YouTube watching videos, I would rather we use our time for practicing. So let's go to the practice platform. Let's attempt questions. And over the weekend, I expect everyone to do at least a timed mock. So we need to do a full mock. So set aside 3 hours, then attempt a full mock. So under exam conditions. So don't just attempt section A, then you stop, then come back for section B. So we want to prepare for the exam environment. To minimize the stress on the day of the exam, so we need to we need to immerse ourselves in that exam environment. So we need to have practice and mock under timed conditions. For those that are able to do that during the week, so you should also practice a mock during the week. The mock gives you feedback. It helps you to refine. When you go through the feedback, so you're able to tell, are you struggling with structuring your answers? Are you struggling with the content? And once you identify your weak areas, then you can rejig your plan. So you can refine your plan, then identify the areas that you're weak at, then you study those areas. So you go back to your notes. So make sure that you are comfortable. So because it's revision week, so let's focus on practice, practice, practice. We need to be doing questions. Even if you feel like you're underprepared, now practice, do the questions. Now you're going to learn more by doing the questions. When you get the feedback, then you know that if I have to go back to my material, okay, what am I going to be looking for? You're going to study better if you have practice. So for this final week, I think let's have a plan. Let's first allocate the time that we have every day. Let's allocate it to revising. Identify the questions that you're going to be doing, the times that you're going to be doing that. And you need to have that written down. You don't want to wing it. So you don't want to just have a few minutes, then you try to wing it. It's better to have a solid plan. If you don't stick to the plan, it's fine. So we know in our syllabus, we talk about variance analysis. We need to apply that when we plan. If it does happen that we don't stick to the plan, we revise that plan. So we revise the plan. So we take data from what has worked well, what hasn't worked well. You come up with a new plan. So that's I think my advice for the final week. So let's practice. So it's practice, practice, practice. If you're one of those students that has not fully prepared, then that's going to be a tough one because now you need to balance practicing and going through the material. But for the average student, we're expecting you to have gone through the material. So the final week is just you practicing. So practice, practice, practice. I think that's the word for our final week.
Thank you. So yeah, I think it's about using that practice to identify weaker areas, and then perhaps using resources like the study hub to go away and strengthen in that in that focused way. I can see we've got some students commenting, and someone was asking about the study hub, so I think that's a good resource to reference. So because this is a revision week, and it is, as you were saying, about all about revision, what would your tips be for students about helping them make the most of this time?
Okay, so I think I have 3 things that I would focus on in the final week. So number 1, so I'll need to go to the pre-match mock debrief. So you need to first attend the mock, then you go through the debrief. Now you're going to learn a lot from the debrief. So expert tutors will debrief the mock. They'll tell you how to structure your answers, what to watch out for, the mistakes that students make, reading to understand. So they'll tell you all the tips that are important for exam day. So they're going through exam technique. And I would also want you to go through the examiner's report. Now, the examiner's report, we don't want to use it to try to spot what's coming in the exam. So the examiner's report identifies the weak areas from the student's perspective. So what are students doing wrong? And maybe students are not following the instructions. When the examiner says round off to the nearest 1,000, students are not doing that. And you get to learn from that. You don't have to make the mistakes yourself. So you can read through the examiner's report. The examiner's report is going to point out those mistakes, the weaknesses that students have. Then now you can refine your own exam technique. And with the examiner's report, you're also going to learn about structuring your answers. So if you go through, say, an EFRA examiner's report as an example, the examiner's report will tell you that for section C, we need you to label your workings. When the question says explain, it does not mean provide one line. You need to provide a mini paragraph. You need to tell us what is happening, how is it happening, why is it happening. If it's a discussion question, what exactly does discuss mean? You're not going to be providing one-liners for discuss or for explain or evaluate. It requires mini paragraphs. It requires a particular structure. So you're going to learn that from the examiner's report. And then the examiner's report, you also get to know, okay, what are students doing well? So when students are getting things right, what are they doing well? So they're structuring the answers. So they have step 1, they have step 2, step 3. So there is a way of answering the questions. You also get to learn that. Then you can use that as part of your exam technique. So I think those are the first 2. So we have the debrief, then we have the examiner's report. Then the third one is practicing with feedback. So you want to practice a mock. If you're studying with an institution, then you want your mock to be marked. You want to get feedback. Now, if you're not studying with an institution and you're part of a group, you want to give each other feedback. So if it's possible, you do a mock, your friend does a mock, then you mark for each other. You give yourself that honest feedback. So you want that honest feedback to help you as you approach the day of the exam. If you don't have that, then you have to try to be honest by yourself. Now, it's difficult to do as a student to honestly review your own paper, but those will be my 3 tips. So let's go through the debrief video and let's practice a mock and let's get feedback either from your tutors or from a friend, or you have to do it by yourself if you don't have someone else. Then let's go through the examiner's report to identify those weaknesses, what we can refine, what we can do better.
Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, I just saw a comment come through that's kind of related to this about a student who said they work, they do the mocks, they complete the questions, but then when it comes to the debrief, they feel tired and they're not getting perhaps as much out of that activity. But I quite like that idea about asking someone else to help provide feedback, because I know that the debrief part of a mock is sometimes the part that students worried about, because they're worried that it will show that they don't understand things and that things aren't going to go well in the real exam, but it's all about learning from that experience, isn't it, and taking it forward. So in terms of, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is going to be a slightly nerve-wracking week. And, you know, understandably, lots of students will feel nervous. So what are your tips for managing nerves and stress as we approach the March exams?
Okay, so I think there are two reasons why students are going to be stressed. So one, we have students that are underprepared. So if you're underprepared, definitely you're going to feel stress. It's a physiological response. It's just your body responding to the pressure. Then we also have students that are going to feel stressed because of anticipation. So it's an exam. You don't know what questions are going to come. Your mind is thinking that you might fail. So there is also the kind of what? Of pressure. So we have those two different stresses. So we have underpreparedness, then we just have anticipation. Now, if you're underprepared, then to manage the stress, you have to prepare. Come up with a plan. So have a plan, and as you tick off from the plan that I've done 2 mocks. So I've done a question on the practice platform. It's a timed mock. I've covered all those chapters. I've read maybe those articles. Now you're going to feel more prepared, then the stress is going to reduce. Then if it's stress because of anticipation, then that stress is easier to manage. We're all going to go through that stress. We're anticipating the exam. So as we get closer to the exam, so what we want to do is want to put ourselves in that exam environment. So want to practice under time. So you want to attempt 3-hour mock. Put yourself in that environment. The day that you get to the final exam, then that stress, you can easily manage it. So it's not going to be stress that will result in panic, where your mind goes blank. So it's stress that you can easily manage because you've put yourself in that environment. So you know how it feels to attempt a 3-hour mock or it's a 2-hour mock. So you've been in that environment and you can manage that stress. So that stress is not all bad. It actually helps us. It actually drives us. But for those that are unprepared or underprepared, then we have to do more. And even go into our next exam season in June. So I advise everyone to have a plan. From the beginning, have a plan. Tick off that I've done this chapter. I've practiced questions. That manages the stress as you go throughout that period. So as you go from, say, March to June, as you tick off, as you do things, then the stress levels are going to reduce. Then they're going to be at a level where they're not going to have an impact on our overall performance the day of the exam. Then if it happens that stress increases the day of the exam, then you want to have some physiological responses, like you want to try some breathing exercises. Some students swear by just pausing for 30 seconds. So just pause, try to regroup, breathe in, breathe out, those long breaths. So they can help you reset your whole nervous system. And for you to be able to do that, you need to identify that, no, what's happening here is stress. That's why I'm going blank. It's not because I didn't study. It's just stress. So you take a moment to pause, the deep breaths, just try to reset. And in some cases, you just have to move on. There are going to be questions that are quite difficult, where they might increase that panic. So you might want to move on from that question. The idea is we want to attempt all the questions in the exam. If we identify a question that's difficult, so let's keep swimming. So just move on. So move on from that question. Otherwise, it might then set in that stress that will go on then affect other questions.
I think what something you said just now is so true about how stress in some form can actually be helpful in a way. I know that doesn't necessarily feel the case when you're living it in the moment, but I guess it's important to stress that you're not seeking perfection in these exams. And, you know, a little bit of stress or a lot of stress is somewhat inevitable. So it's about managing it and accepting that. I think not comparing yourself to others as well on exam day is quite important, because I think we're all prone to looking around and thinking that everyone seems more prepared or ready to go than ourselves, but everyone will be feeling this kind of stress in some way. So yeah, concentrate on what's in your control, practice what you can ahead of time, but understand what you're going to do on exam day and what exam day will look like for you. And so then you're going in feeling as prepared as possible. So thank you so much, Trevor. We'll be wrapping up shortly. So I wanted to ask you before we do, if you have a final message that you want to share for ACCA students as they head towards the March exam session.
Okay. I think my final message is, I think we have to just stop and just reflect on how much we've put in, the work that we've put in. So let's not just be too stressed and just thinking about the exam. Let's also just stop and think about the work that you have put in. So you have put in the work. So you have done the work. You have practiced the mocks. You have done the reading. You've gone through the content, the YouTube videos. That should give you some sort of relief. Okay, I have prepared, so I've done my part. So I think, like what you've rightly said, we need to focus on what's in our control. So if you have done everything that you need to do, we don't need to know everything. So we're not aiming for 100%. So we want to get a pass. So to get a pass means we have to just be comfortable with majority of the material. We need to have practiced our mocks. So we need to have practiced that under timed conditions. I think my final message to you is, so you've put in the work, so don't be too hard on yourself. And as we go into this final week, so let's come up with a plan that allows us just to get that, I think those final marks that we could have missed. So let's have a plan. The plan is for us to identify the weak areas, to refine our skill, because we have already some skills. Let's refine our exam strategy. We already have some strategies already. Let's refine that. Let's just make it better. And with that, I'm sure we'll be able to score that passing mark.
Thank you so much. And yeah, absolutely. I think this week is all about kind of quality and focused revision sessions, but also make sure to look after yourself and think about how you're going to keep yourself as calm as possible. However that looks for you, maybe if it's exercising, listening to music, anything that will keep you as relaxed as possible in this stressful week. Thank you so much, Trevor. I think all that is left to be said is good luck to everyone who's sitting an exam next week. You have put in so much hard work, and you know it's almost here, so we're rooting for you. And yeah, I think we'll leave it there. But thank you so much, Trevor, for all your advice, and take care, everyone, and thank you for watching.
Cool. Thank you very much for having me.